So I'm sure that someone has already told you about getting the kids into the stream, so on and so forth. The biggest thing for teaching with the stream is to make sure you've come up with strategic places to stop, because when you're walking on the stream, it's very difficult for the people in the back to hear the leader up in the front. So if you find like spots in the stream where it's a little quieter, you can gather the whole group together and do your informational piece and then walk for a period of time. It's always good to have a couple things in your toolbox to be able to stop and talk about, so that kids aren't just walking the whole stream, but they're learning some things along the way. So a great thing for when you enter the stream here, it's a little bit quieter location, and you can actually see in the light down there, there are some water striders, which are another type of your macroinvertebrate. So as we get in, if they're still there, we'll take a look at some of those.
When you arrive at the stream, there are often muddy footprints of deer that are located nearby. So it's a wonderful time to introduce the idea that animals like deer use the freshwater streams as a water supply. And also you can show them the deer prints. You can show them how large a deer is based on the size of the print, and you can also determine which direction they were actually traveling by their footprint. Another thing, as students are starting to get into the stream, you can show them that there are many animals that live here. In that video, you can actually see a fish that swims by in the video. It's also a great opportunity to show them the movement of the water within the sand or the mud that is located at the bottom of the stream. Another really cool thing is you can often find water striders on the surface of the stream, in either the beginning where you get the kids into the stream, or sometimes in the cutouts or the smaller, quieter sections of the stream. Water striders are really cool because they use their legs, their long legs, to spread out their weight on the surface of the water, and they also use the water tension, or what we call surface tension of the water, to stay afloat. They also have these really cool things on their legs that make them hydrophobic. Hydrophobic means water hating, and so it repels the water molecules. So water striders are like super cool, and the ones that are on the stream are really big that you can show the kids. Watersheds like Harrison Creek have water that flows downhill unless it evaporates, freezes, or is taken up by plants or seeps into the ground. So when it falls as rain, melts from snow or ice, or bubbles up from beneath the earth, it will either flow in one direction or another. At some point within the stream, it would be a really good idea to talk about how streams carry sediments and nutrients and other materials into the rivers and lakes and onto the ocean. You can also talk about Harrison Creek and how it travels down to the ocean. Harrison Creek is a tributary that flows itself into Dell Creek around the point of Mirror Lake. Harrison Creek itself is about 5 miles long, and the lower 3.6 miles of the tributary, according to the Department of Natural Resources in Wisconsin, is considered a Class II trout stream. They actually stocked Harrison Creek until 1994, but at the time they found that the non-point source pollution was so severe that all the stocking efforts of the trout were actually discontinued. They also found that sediment and nutrient loading from agricultural fields and barnyards, stream bank erosion, hydraulic manipulation, and lack of in-stream habitat impacted the water quality of Harrison Creek. So at this point, they are not planning on stocking it. However, in 1995, they found good water quality compared to the past, but the lack of habitat and the location of some other major sources of non-point pollution affect the stream's potential in various locations. But as you saw in the picture, there are fish that live in Harrison Creek.
So one of the things in the stream you can point out is the riparian habitat, which are the plants, shrubs, trees that are along the sides of the stream. They are very beneficial ecosystem for our wetlands as well. I stopped here to point out a really cool plant. This plant right here is called skunk cabbage. In the springtime it comes up and it looks like a little tiny piece of cabbage. And then it produces these big massive leaves, and if you pull them apart and you kind of grind them up, they smell a little bit like a skunk. They're a lot more potent in the springtime than they are in the fall, so these have very little smell of skunks, but you can talk about skunk cabbage. It was one of the first plants that comes up in the spring, and so the colonial people, when they came, knew that you could actually eat skunk cabbage, and so this was some of their first food after a long winter.
So a riparian habitat or riparian zone is the interface between land and a river or a stream. Plants along the edges of the stream are what we call hydrophilic, meaning they love water, and they help with the soil conservation. They also provide habitat and biodiversity for our stream, and they influence the flora and the fauna of the various ecosystems both on land and in the water. So they're actually an extremely important part of the stream. Camp Gray has some really amazing plants along the edge of Harrison Creek. The purple one you see here is called the lobelia plant or giant lobelia plant, and it comes in a variety of colors, purple and red, and they love water. And Camp Gray has this beautiful purple variety. The other variety is called cardinal flower, and it's beautiful red. Another beautiful plant you have along the water is the giant angelica plant. Here you have the picture of just the leaves, and they produce this beautiful flower in the spring that is kind of large and purple, and then it produces the seed pod in the fall, which is super cool. And then the next segment is jewelweed, which is another amazing flower that has orange and yellow on it, and then produces these exploding seeds out of it at the fall time. And so that will be coming up next.
So this is a plant called jewelweed, and jewelweed often grows along the side of poison ivy. Reason for that is the sap of the jewelweed can be used to help contradict the effects of poison ivy. But the other really cool thing about jewelweed is they have these seed pods on them that have what we call a method of dispersal called exploding. And you can actually find them and you can see that they explode. We'll try that one more time. If you're going to focus on this one right here, can you see it? Yeah. We're going to see if it'll explode. And if you, for some reason, catch the seeds, if they're black, you can actually eat them. They taste a little bit like walnuts. So this is a really good example of a part of a stream that has riffles. Riffles are faster moving water. They also provide lots of oxygen to the animals and the insects that live in our wetlands. So if we were to actually do an oxygen study here, you would find that the dissolved oxygen here is a lot higher than in other different places.
This would be an example in the stream of what we call a pool. And a pool is where the water slows down and the bottom can sometimes be relatively deep. So where a riffle is moving faster, it's usually because of a constriction of the stream or maybe a steeper gradient. A pool is where it's not very steep and the water is moving very slowly. And this is where sediment will start to settle at the bottom of a body of water, and over millions and millions of years that sediment may become a sedimentary rock. So they also provide habitat for animals that don't like fast-moving water. It's also an area where animals like fish might breed as well. One of the questions I often get asked is, why do streams and rivers meander? Well, with a little bit of disturbance and a whole lot of time, you get a meandering stream. Let's give an example. So a muskrat burrows into a stream bed. He makes a cozy little home, but makes the bank weak. This causes part of the stream bed to crumble. With that crumbling, water rushes into where the dirt used to be. As the water rushes into this new portion of the river, the other side slows down. Unable to keep all the dirt, it settles on the bottom, making the river shallower and slower. Fastest moving water is in the outside bank, and it carries the debris when it slams into the other side of the bank, causing the curves in the stream. The wider the stream, the longer it takes to hit the other bank, causing the curves to be longer in between. Scientific research has found that from the beginning of an S-shaped curve to the end is about 6 times the width across the stream. If nothing stops the curves, they will continue to get curvier and curvier as time goes on.
So one of the cool things you can do in the stream is talk about some of the macroinvertebrates that live more in the stream than in the ponds or other wetlands. One of the really cool ones are caddisflies. I talked a little bit about them later in my marsh video. But caddisflies are like super cool. I'd never seen one until I came to Camp Gray, and you can find them in rocky environments here in the stream. So we're gonna take a look under some of these rocks and see if we can find any caddisflies. So those are some examples of caddisflies. We've got one here. We've got a bunch here. I wish you had seen them out before I pulled up the rock, but they really went in quickly after I brought it out. However, this one looks like he's starting to come out at the top. We'll keep looking for more examples for you as well.
So caddisflies are considered an insect that goes through complete metamorphosis. So they have an egg, larva, pupa, and adult stage. In fact, the adults live for about a month, and they feed on nectar absorbed through a very simple mouth part. The female then lays masses of eggs just above the water's surface, and when the larvae hatch from the eggs, they fall into the water, and they immediately start to begin to build their protective cases. When that larva is fully grown, it enters its pupa stage, and the larva attaches the cases to some type of solid object like a stone or a larger piece of wood and seals the opening. And then they create a cocoon of silk. The pupa case then can grab water that permeates through that case and starts to undergo its transformation. In fact, the larva or the pupa inside undulate in order to create a flow of oxygenated water around their body. The homes that these caddisfly larvae create actually helps to protect them from predators. It's a great adaptation. And these homes allow them to retreat into something that's hard and protective if a predator is coming their way. The other part is that you can actually often identify the type of caddisfly by the type of home that they create. So caddisflies that land in an area with fast-moving water tend to pick items to build their home out of that are heavier weights so that they don't drift downstream. And those that are in more stagnant water create them out of easier material that is lighter weight so that they are able to get more oxygen.
So this particular rock actually has quite a few what we call mayflies on them. I showed you a picture in the marsh video of them. Mayflies are one of our main indicator species, meaning if you find them in wetlands, you know that they're a pretty healthy ecosystem. So we can tell that Harrison Creek is actually a pretty healthy stream because these mayflies are living here, otherwise they would be dead. Cool thing about mayflies is they only live for a day, and you can watch the rest of the marsh video to hear more about the mayflies.
Finally, it's important for people to understand that streams are important for water purification, protecting us from floods, providing us with drinking water, providing wildlife habitat, nutrient recycling, waste decomposition, fisheries, and just plain aesthetics. In Wisconsin alone, wetlands are under attack. We started at one point in time with 10 million acres of wetlands. We are now to just 5 million at this point, with a continual loss every single day. I hope that you've learned something about this stream, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.